Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of What You Talking About. Today I am joined by Hannah Black. She is an up-and-coming CrossFitter with an exceptional background in weightlifting. You may know her from winning the snatch event in semi-finals last year, and she is going to be one to watch going into the 2024 CrossFit season. It is a super fun episode. I loved learning about Hannah, and I'm so excited for all that's to come for her. As always, don't forget to like, rate and subscribe to be the first to hear all about our new episodes and content. Enjoy! Hannah, thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, really good. Thank you. Thanks for joining me. I know it's like a weird time of year because we're like at the beginning of the season. Everyone's kind of like, I don't know if they're panicking or prepping, but everyone's just very busy and all sorts. Like, how are things in Hannah's world at the moment?
They're really good right now. I feel like I'm really well prepared for the season. I just joined Brute Strength about a month or two ago, and I'm under Micah. He's my new coach, and I've loved every second of it. It's been really, really good for me. So I feel like I'm in a really good spot.
Nice. It is like I will talk about training camps a little bit, but Brute this year, I think they've just got so many people, and it's like I like to say it's just all really good people, like good humans at Brute, and like everyone's obviously got similar goals. Has it helped obviously having a new coach, but being part of a camp where there's a lot of people going for the same thing? Does that help?
Oh my gosh, for sure. Yeah. In my previous experience, have only ever had like a handful of coaches from smaller gyms and some remote at that. And I've never been part of a company like Brute where their reach is so wide. And it's really cool because even before, I've only been to one of their camps so far. I went to Louisiana to work with Coach L and a bunch of girls. I believe it was 2 weekends ago. And that was incredible of an experience. I've never consistently worked out with other girls. I think I've only ever had like guys as training partners, which is fine. But I even when I like had thoughts of doing, like Team Wadapalooza, I was like, who would I even ask? I don't even know another girl who would want to do that with me. So meeting them and seeing that, they're very, very similar to me was a really cool experience, something that I've never done before. And then on top of that, doing, we all do Brutal Friday workouts together, or at least like on the same day and like with the same setup. And so it's really cool to see kind of like where you stack up against other people who have been like really successful in the past. And that's been really cool for me because I've never had that experience before.
Yeah, I love that you say that the difference in training with guys and girls, because you don't have, I suppose, like with weights and numbers, etc. You can't really compare yourself, can you? I mean, you can compare
Right.
fitness, but there's always that slight kind of like inconsistency. Have you noticed a difference in like the way you're pushing yourself because you've got more accurate maybe comparatives?
100%. I think so. I went down on a Thursday. We trained Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Every single workout that we did, I was going like 110% because if a guy beats me in my own gym, I'm like, okay, cool, you're a guy. Like it's totally different. But obviously when I beat them, I'm like, oh my gosh, you just got beat by a girl. But when I'm head to head with other girls, it is much different. Because again, like girls approach things differently. They have different strategies, things like that, things that, I've like never really been around. And so seeing that and like seeing girls who, have been to the games before, the way that they carry themselves and the way that they attack workouts was really cool for me. Just because again, I've never really been around another girl who's as competitive as I am. And so watching them and seeing them, even like the small things on like, like what they decide to do for a warm up, and what they do for cool down and things like that, like was just really cool for me. And growing up, I never really had a ton of friends that were girls either. I was usually like the only girl in like the weightlifting gym or, doing other things like that. So it was really cool to be around girls that are very similar.
Yeah, it's all about like-minded people, right? And especially having
Yeah.
having that. And you've kind of swung very well into what I was going to ask you next, was that you of course have a weightlifting background, which shows within your competition, but you started weightlifting pretty young, right? You were in like high school?
Yeah, so I happen to be like one of the luckiest people ever. I grew up like 5 minutes away from a really like well-renowned weightlifting gym. And I originally went there because my best friend at the time in high school, we both played softball together, and she went there for an athletic development class. So they were teaching you, just how to be like all around stronger, faster, better for your sport. And I knew I wanted to play volleyball in college. So I was like, okay, this is something that I need to do. I need to figure out how to lift weights. I need to, jump higher, run faster, stuff like that. So I started going to MASH Elite, which is what it was called, I think the beginning of my sophomore year of high school. And Travis Mash, the owner of that, was like a world renowned power lifter and was kind of breaking into the Olympic lifting space as a coach. And he taught even like the girls who went to the athletic development class, like how to lift the right way, squat, bench, deadlift, snatch, clean and jerk, how to basically like learn the progressions with a PVC pipe first. Like I think I did PVC pipe work for a few months before we ever got to like actually add weight for the Olympic lifts. And I cannot thank him enough, because too many times I see people who, want to be competitive in CrossFit, and they're trying to learn all these new skills at the same time. And I think people sometimes forget that like Olympic weightlifting is it's completely like its own thing. Like people dedicate their lives to those two lifts and still like aren't technically like a master of them. So when you throw it into a space like CrossFit, where it's one of like, like 100 things you need to know how to do, I feel like the teaching and like the habits that you form very like early are so important. And if you get them like the right way with the right coach, it makes like later on in life so much easier. And so I was super lucky to kind of fall into that. And Travis asked a few of us girls if we would be part of like a weightlifting competition that he was hosting, because he needed more girls for it to be like sanctioned. And I was like, I'll do it. Like, that sounds fun. Why not? And then after that, I basically just started like actually lifting on the side of playing volleyball and softball in high school. And so I did a few competitions under him, like junior nationals and a few other like competitions, and absolutely loved it.
I love how that you started with that, because I think we see now so many people that start CrossFit and then maybe move in to weightlifting, but you've
Right.
done it the right way in a sense. Do you Would you ever in a position where you thought like you were playing all these different sports, and it was, I assume, at the beginning and during, was it just to make you better at the other sports? Did you ever think that that was going to be like one of your main sports?
No, for sure not. I think I grew up playing basketball, volleyball, and softball, and I think I had my mind set on playing volleyball in college. And so I did the whole thing. Like I played high school volleyball, I did junior Olympic volleyball, which is like travel all around, just like playing volleyball for probably like a solid like 6 7 months out of the year, depending on how our like playoffs went. And my mind was like 100% in that. And then when I started weightlifting, like for fun mostly, just because I really enjoyed being at MASH and I liked the people there. And I was like the only girl, so like all my friends were guys, but I really liked it there, and I really enjoyed my time. And so the more that I went, and like the more that I followed like the 8 week program, like week after week, especially when I was a beginner, like the beginner's luck of like PRing every other week was insane. And so I really, really started to enjoy it. And then Travis had me do a few of competitions to like qualify for national competitions, like youth nationals and junior nationals. And I think that's when I started to realize like, oh, I could like do this potentially instead of playing volleyball, or instead of doing something like that. And so that's when I started to like kind of switch my mindset of like, oh, like this could be my thing, because I always wanted to play a sport in college, and weightlifting wasn't like a sanctioned like college sport back then, and it's still very new now. So in my mind I was like, if I want to play a sport, it's going to be like volleyball or softball. But then when I started to go to those bigger competitions, I just had so much fun, and I feel like I was like on a really good path of getting to where I wanted to go, which was like maybe making a national team and things like that, because Travis has been a national, like a USA weightlifting coach on multiple occasions. And so it kind of shifted my mindset. I still ended up playing volleyball my freshman year of college, and then decided that, I didn't like it as much as I thought I would. I missed weightlifting. I missed, like working out with my friends. And so I ended up not going back for my sophomore season. And that's when I started, I lifted weights. I went to East Carolina University. So I lifted weights on their club team and went to university nationals, like U25 nationals. And it was like a great experience for me.
Mm-hmm. I love talking to people that have done weightlifting competitions, because I think you can watch a CrossFit competition and kind of understand, like, there's a massive vibe there and there's loads of shouting and screaming and adrenaline. But when you do a weightlifting competition and you walk out on a platform and it's like dead silent, it's all on you. What is that like, and how do you prepare yourself for that?
So actually it's kind of crazy to think about, because the last weightlifting competition I did, I believe it was probably 2021 maybe. I was still in college, or still in grad school, and just did it for fun. And I remember I had a whoop by then, because I was CrossFitting as well. And my friend had my phone in the crowd, and he was watching like my strain rate, and it literally wasn't the most insane thing. Is like, as I was like walking up to the stage, is like my strain jumped like 3 or 4 points each time. It was so wild. I think my heart was racing. And even though it was like a smaller, like local competition, it is like very nerve-wracking to walk up to the bar. And it's like, I try not to think about it this way, but this is basically the gist. It's like, you've been working really, really hard for the past like X amount of months to lift this barbell in 60 seconds. And if you don't do it, like, you don't get to show the work that you've done. And it's really like, a lot of people like in the weightlifting world think like you can make training PRs, but it doesn't really matter until you hit it when it counts. And so to think about all of those things like at the same time is quite nerve-wracking. I think for me though, especially, is like, I've always ever done better in competition. Like, sometimes I would hit numbers in competition that I've never even touched in training. Because I think when you kind of like feel that pressure and you feel the adrenaline, if you use it to your advantage, you can lift an insane amount of weight. Like, weights that you would think that are like super heavy in training feel insanely light. Like, you kind of have to like tap into that power and like use it to your advantage. Because I've had people around me who kind of like do the opposite and like let it like crush them, and like everything goes wrong and like they're super nervous. And that's so unfortunate, because like you work so hard and you don't get to show it. But for me, I've always ever, like, it's good nervous energy, and I've been able to feel that. And kind of like what happened to me at semifinals, like, I had never even attempted 230 before, and the pull off the floor was so light that I missed it behind. And so that's never happened to me before. At like a PR like that. Like, I don't know if I've ever missed like a 5-pound PR behind because I overpulled. So it's just like kind of learning how to use the energy as good, and kind of believe in yourself. And because you really only get those opportunities like a handful of times a year, or honestly ever, in CrossFit, because I didn't even think that a max snatch would come up. And so to be able to use the energy like to my advantage is definitely something that weightlifting taught me.
Yeah. It fills me with dread. The thought of like walking out onto a weightlifting platform.
It is super quiet. Yeah.
But it's so interesting to hear that, and like the strain as well. How interesting to see that, because you can probably feel it, but I don't know, that's things like that. Maybe you're like, is it in my head? Am I actually like doing this? So to have it like down on paper. And I know that a lot of like your weightlifting career has moved you into CrossFit, but just to touch on, you're saying about like being the only girl in the gym and things like that. Picking up weightlifting in high school is becoming way more of the norm now. But like, how did you find that, like being the only girl and doing weightlifting? Did you have people be like, oh, girls don't lift weights, which I don't even like saying them words because it's not
right.
true. But did you
I
You
definitely. I had some really interesting experiences. Obviously like in my weightlifting gym, I didn't ever, like no one ever told me like, oh, girls don't lift weights. Like they loved having a girl around and I loved being around. And honestly, like my personality, like growing up, I always had friends that were boys and only had like one or two friends that were girls. So it just kind of like made sense. And I felt super comfortable like in the weightlifting gym and I really enjoyed it. But when I would go to like, high school and you get two options for your, actually there are three options for your like physical, education classes. It was dance, PE, or weightlifting. Um, and I can't dance, like don't have any rhythm, not for me. PE just didn't really sound like my cup of tea either. And I really liked weightlifting at that point. So I obviously chose weightlifting. And it was funny because again, I was the only girl in there. The football coach was the teacher. He made all of his football boys take that class. And so it was super interesting because I mean, like it was a mixed reaction. Like some of them thought that it was really cool that I was in there lifting weights and doing all that stuff. Some of them thought that I was super weird, and like a lot of the other girls my age, I wouldn't say I got like bullied for it, but they definitely like thought that like I was super weird and I shouldn't do that, and like if I keep doing it, I'm gonna turn into like the Hulk or something. Like just stupid things that high schoolers say. And like even when I first told my mom has always been like super supportive, but she was like, "Are you sure? Like that's what you want to do? Like I thought you wanted to play volleyball or do this or do that." And I was like, "No, this is what I want to do." And so like even though she didn't quite understand it, she always supported it. But I definitely got some not super nice reactions. And I think, yeah, I was the only girl in my weightlifting class for 2 years. I might have seen another girl once or twice in like the later years, but and then in my weightlifting gym a few other girls would like come through and lift with us, so I wasn't the only one there. But yeah, in high school it definitely was like not the norm, like not like the thing to do.
It's funny because that you say about your parents, because like when I started CrossFit, I had that exact reaction, and they were like, "You're lifting weights? What? Like, is that?" And again, you got the whole like, "Isn't that going to make you bulky?" and all these questions. I think my reaction was like, "Yeah, I want to be bulky going."
Yeah, honestly, I tell people, I'm like, I'm trying to get big. Like, I'm doing everything I possibly can. And, like, still, I'm not as big as I want to be. So, like, you saying that, like, am I worried about getting big? Like, I'm worried about not getting big is, like, the main thing, probably.
I love that. It's so great. And then at what point did you go, like, because it almost seems like if you had done a lot of sports and you were competing in weightlifting, CrossFit seems like quite a natural progression as to combining it all. But at what point did you do that?
Yeah, so after I stopped playing volleyball, I immediately went back to weightlifting, and weightlifted with the club team at my college for a little while, and then I just didn't have the same feeling as like growing up in Travis's gym where the environment was like incredible. I had so many people around me who were like super competitive and like pushing me to be my best. The environment wasn't the same and I didn't enjoy it as much. So the place that I was weightlifting for ECU was in the back of a CrossFit gym. And I remember there would be a few times where the CrossFit coaches would, like pick on us, like when they would see us walk in, like, "Oh, another day of just lifting. Like, can you run a mile? Like, can you do a strict pull up?" And I always like love to pick back and be like, "Of course I can. Like, tell me when to show up." And so every now and then I would jump into a workout with them just for fun. And to kind of like, like spend time with those people. And then finally, I think I just decided, I was like, you know what, like weightlifting isn't super fun for me right now. I'm not enjoying it. I feel like I'm in a little bit of a rut. So I gave myself like a month or two and started jumping into CrossFit classes because there was a lot of kids my age in college that went to my gym because it was really close to the school. And so I started jumping into workouts. And by jumping in, I mean like if it had something I didn't like, I did not go. Like if it had like running or any type of like if the bike was in there for too many rounds or like too many calories, I'd be like, not going that day. So I really only did it for fun for probably, I would say that turned into like a year or so of just kind of like learning all the different movements and going for fun and like not taking it too seriously. Like I went to class for an hour a day and then, hung out with friends for a little bit after and then left. And then I think about a year in is when I met one of my best friends in college. His name was Antonio, and he started doing Mayhem, the program. And he asked me, he was like, hey, like, would you want to do this with me? And I looked at the workout and I was like, absolutely not. I'm not doing that at all, ever. And so I watched him kind of like do it on his own for like a week or two, maybe. And then by that time I was like, ugh, I have to do it. Like, he looks sad by himself. I need to help. So I ended up doing it with him. And that was like my first, I would say, like legit program that I followed, that had me in the gym, obviously like a lot longer than just an hour. And I started doing it with him, and he probably kicked my butt for 8 months straight, like just absolutely destroyed me. He had been doing CrossFit for much longer, and he was really good at like all things gymnastics, and that was what I was not very good at. And so I honestly, I think that made me like it more because it's like it was a challenge. I had someone that would help me when I needed it, but also like kicked my butt in every single workout. And then I would say, I don't know if you would agree on this, but I think around the 8 months, maybe like 10-month mark after we had gone through a couple of cycles, is when I would start to beat him every now and then. And then when I would beat him, and it's like all relative because he's a guy and I'm a girl, so it doesn't quite match up. But when I would beat him, I felt like on top of the world. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. So then I started like training extra hard so that I could like try to beat him more often. And then I think by the time that we both left ECU, I'll give him, he was probably beating me 60% of the time. I was beating him 40% of the time. But it was a great way to start. We had, by the end of it, we started following Misfits programming because our whole gym, changed programs. And by the end of it, I think like 6 or 7 of us were doing the same program like every single day. And that was a great way to start because it was so much fun to have other people there, and it's just to have like the camaraderie of like a team feeling, even though it is an individual sport and we were training individually. It still felt like a team. So like kind of like the sports that I grew up with, and I loved that.
Yeah. I don't beat people very often, but agree that it is.
Oh yeah, it's the best.
I think I'm feeling like, well, there's always, for anyone that is trains with people, or there's always people in the class. Or I used to train in the I like train in the mornings, so the next day you'd see like the evening scores on the board, and I'd be like,
yeah.
And I know that people would do that to me as well. Like they'd be like,
always.
I've got to do that.
If people say they don't do that, they're lying for sure.
Even if they do it just for themselves, which
you don't. Yeah, I don't have to like say it out loud. I just like in my mind, I'm like, all right, okay, like I did pretty good.
Absolutely. And then because you did a little bit of team as well, didn't you, before kind of fully going into your individual career? Did you like the fact that you, like, especially playing like volleyball and softball, and you had that team camaraderie? Did you enjoy that you could do competitions as a team? And like, is that how you kind of got into the, I suppose, the serious competitions, if that makes sense?
100%. Yeah, my first few serious competitions were all on team. Like, I went Wadapalooza team a few times, and then I did NorCal Classic, which was a pretty big one at the time. And then there's a few other handful like bigger team competitions that I did. And I think the transition, from playing team sports to competing as a team was so easy, because even when I first started CrossFit, the few competitions that I did then were always partners. So I always partnered with my friend Antonio, and it was so fun because a lot of the times, especially like for team partner competitions, like you could play each other's strengths. So like he would kill the gymnastics and then I would kill the weightlifting part, and we would both kind of help on like the more metcon-y, like grindy workouts. And I absolutely loved that. Like I thought it was so much fun. Because it kind of brought out like the best in both of us. And then when I started doing like the bigger like 4-man team competitions, I loved that as well, because I was like still relatively new experience wise, and usually the guys that would be on the team would be more experienced and would help us a ton. And I loved experiencing that. And honestly, had I not kind of been like forced into like the individual competition like world, I might not have ever done it, because I loved teams so much. Like I loved, you know, being a part of something that was bigger than me. And I think I could push myself harder if it was for someone else, if that makes sense. And I absolutely loved like the dynamic of like, I'm going to give my best for you, you give your best for me. And then like what we make is going to be, you know, better than we ever could have done alone.
Mm-hmm. I do think some people with team, they either love it or hate it. And it's such a thing, because I'm not a competitive athlete in any way, but I don't like the pressure of being on a team. I'd rather, if I'm going to let someone down, I'd rather it be myself. But then the way you word it of like, I will push myself harder for someone else, mm-hmm. is also such an interesting thing. Do you like being out on the floor as an individual? Do you miss having people with you?
100%. I think, so in semifinals, when I went individual, my gym, Carhu, sent a team as well. And so kind of just like hearing them talk about like, you know, their experience in the warm-up room and like what they were going to do and like what they talked about like right before the workout started when they were on the floor. I definitely missed that, because when you're out there alone, and in my case, for the first time, that was my first individual competition. So like I had no idea what to expect. And then on top of that, you know, on the second day when I got moved into the later heats, all those girls knew each other, but no one knew me. So like I didn't talk to anyone hardly, and it was just like a totally different experience than what I'd ever been used to competing wise, because you always have like your 3 other people on your team that you talk to, and they look out for you, you look out for them, and things like that. And so honestly, I think it probably hit me when we right before the first event, they were lining us up, and I knew one other girl in my heat, who I had trained with like a little bit. But we like were lining up, and I was like, wow, it's really just me in here. Like, I don't know any of these girls. These girls don't know me. I'm about to go out there by myself. And I was like, I don't know if I had thought about it like that quite yet. And so I had like a little bit of a panic. And it didn't help that they lined us up in this like dark, like dusty hallway. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm by myself. But it ended up being completely fine. And I think honestly for me in this stage of competition, I have basically like changed my whole life to compete. And it is really hard to find 3 other people on the same page as you in that aspect. So at this point, you know, like people have asked me if I would ever go team again. And my answer is always like, for right now, like I'm like, I can only guarantee that I'm doing the work that I need to be doing. So it's like, unless I would find 3 other people that like, you know, basically quit their jobs like I did, put CrossFit above almost everything in their lives, the answer would be no, because like I know I'm doing that, and I know I'm doing everything that I can do day by day. And at this point, it's like, if I'm willing to give all that up, like it has to be on me, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And talking of semifinals, it's crazy that we're like in the 2024 season now. So this time last year, kind of going into like quarterfinals, was semifinals a goal? Like I know you were doing like a few different bits, and now, as you say, like your gym had a team, etc. But like, where were you at going into kind of like quarters, etc. last year? Are you stuck at a plateau and without a recent PB? Mergs has you covered. Bringing you the highest performance CrossFit and weightlifting equipment on the market, Mergs is your secret weapon to set a new best. Whether that's knee sleeves, grips, or tape, Mergs has everything you need to stay protected and performing. Head over to mergs.com now and save 15% on all orders with the code WOD15.
Honestly, it's a funny story. So I hate qualifiers. Like I hate when the camera comes out. I hate the tape on the floor. I hate clipboards. Like I hate it all. It's, in my opinion, like the absolute worst part about competing in CrossFit. Just so many things can go wrong. Like your camera angle can be wrong. The camera could cut off, which has happened to me a few times before. Just like so many things, and it's so much pressure, and I absolutely hate it. And so I had told my coach that last year, around this time, like, look, I, don't usually do as well as I should be doing in qualifiers just because of like how much anxiety like it brings me. And he was like, okay, well, in that case, like you should do individual quarterfinals to get more experience, because I wasn't even planning on signing up for that. My whole goal, the whole like season leading up was to be on Carhu's team and go to semifinals with the team. And I told him, I was like, okay, fine, like I'll do the quarterfinals workouts, but I'm not gonna like sign up or anything. And he was like, why would you do that? He was like, why would you put yourself through that and not put your name on the leaderboard? And I was like, well, I don't know, like honestly, like it was out of fear of like just doing badly and having my name, like somewhere hundreds of spots out. And so he was like, well, he was like, number one, that's dumb. If you're gonna put the tape on the floor and have someone judge you, you should do it the right way. And I was like, finally, like I think the last minute, like the last day that you could sign up, I did. And so I ended up doing the quarterfinals workouts, and it wasn't until the one with clean and jerks and burpee box jump overs that I like honestly even like took it that seriously, because not like there wasn't even like a idea in my mind that I would make it as an individual. I had just never like seen that for myself, and I had never seen myself as like well-rounded enough to go individual. And so that workout put me, I don't know where I was before that workout. I don't even think I checked the leaderboard. But that specific workout put me, I want to say, in like the low 60s. And last year they took 60. So that's when someone kind of said something to me from my gym. They were like, like you're sitting, I think like 4 spots out of like a qualifying position to go to semifinals as an individual. And I was like, are you sure? Hannah Black? Like, was it a different Hannah? But yeah, so when that happened, I kind of was like, oh my gosh, like maybe I do have a chance of going individual. Not that that was my plan, but that would be really cool if I had an option. And so we definitely took the last workout or two after that, like pretty seriously. And made sure that, like I had everything that I needed. And like, I actually had like a strategy going into it. Because with some of the other ones, it was literally like, like here's your jump rope, here's your dumbbell, like figure it out. So I once that was over, I was sitting in I think like 62nd, so 2 spots out, and then I ended up doing quarterfinals with the team at Carhu as well, and they also were sitting like right on the line of qualifying or not qualifying. I think they were in 41st, and they took 40 teams, and so I had no idea what I was going to do. I didn't even know if they were going to give backfill spots, because I think a lot of the things that I read were like, they don't have to give backfill spots if they don't want to. And so it was like super nerve wracking of like, I think it was like a 2-week time period where I was like, I might not get either. We might get both. I have no idea. And so I was talking to my coach to kind of like have a game plan of like what I would do if like XYZ happened. And then I finally did get my individual invitation. And I thought I would have more time, but they were like, you have 24 hours to accept or decline. And I was like, that is a quick turnaround. Like that's a lot. And so, within that 24 hours, we still didn't know if like the team was going to go or not. And I kind of had a conversation with my coach at the time, and I was like, look, I don't know if I want to go individual, but what I do know is that it makes me extremely uncomfortable to think about being an individual and being out there by myself. And I feel like that's the reason why I need to go, is because that's what's going to push me like so hard out of my comfort zone. And he agreed with me. And so we accepted, and then the team ended up getting their invite. So an alternate filled in for me, and they got to go as well. But yeah, I had no goals of going individual, no goals of going to semifinals as an individual. I honestly, like, again, like, unless it happened the way that it did, like by chance, I still don't think that I would be doing anything individual.
How interesting. That's like, so it was literally, imagine if you hadn't have filmed them
I
qualifying.
know. It's crazy. I think especially since that snatch workout came out, because I think there's just some workouts that come out and you're like, wow, that one's for me for sure. If I didn't go individual and the individuals got to max snatch like they did, I think I would have died. So very glad that I accepted it.
And going out, I know you said like that nerve-wracking feeling. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but didn't you win your first heat as well? Like the first event, first heat?
I did. Yeah, I did. And that was a surprise too, because I am not known for my cardio for sure. And that workout on paper was half ergs. But the sled happened to be, heavy enough to give me a little bit of an edge. And that worked so well in my favor. So yeah, that was kind of a little bit of a shock, because I think we plan, or like we practiced that workout a few different ways. One way was when I was pulling the sled on rubber mats in our gym, and that was really hard and very similar to what it actually was. And then we practiced it in the parking lot of my gym where the sled was on asphalt, and it was so light and so quick. That version was awful because you had like the tiniest amount of time between going, from the bike to the runner to the skier. And if it had been that version, things would have been much different. But thank goodness for me, the sled just stuck to the ground at semifinals, and that was a huge, huge help to me.
Do you think that kind of gave you the boost you needed to start the weekend and like go into it feeling, I suppose, maybe a little bit more like you were you belonged, you were in the right place?
I honestly, it was a little shocking, not gonna lie, because when we went out there, if I remember correctly, there was like 20 people in my heat. There's a lot of us out there, and I think I knew the paces that I had to hold on like the bike and the runner and the skier to get like around what I got in training. And so I think I wasn't even really paying attention, and I don't think I like broke into like the top whatever amount of people until like the middle ish of the workout. And so I was like really like in my own like head, like running, watching the screen and the monitor change, and like really focusing on the numbers. And then I remember hearing my name be called, but I also, had another friend named Hannah in the same heat that I knew. And so I was like, the first time they called my name, I didn't catch like the last name really. So I was like, oh, Hannah Hall must be doing really good. And then I kept running, and then I heard my name again, and he kept saying Bethany Shadburn was the other name that he was calling the other girl that I was going like head to head with, which is kind of funny because like I've been, following her and her like CrossFit journey for years now. And then I was hearing my name after hers, and I was like, that doesn't make sense. And then I just, like stayed in my lane. And then the third time he said it, I was like actually listening for it. And then that's when I kind of figured out that I was like, one of, like two girls that were on to the next thing, or like onto the next sled pull. And I know that Bethany is really, really good at ergs and like running and things like that. And so I was like, in my head, I was like, okay, I really only have one shot at winning this, and it's on the sled pulls. And so I took that to my advantage and just try to go as fast as I could there and just hold on the last skier. And it ended up working out, which is crazy to me, because I think a few of my friends were like, you're going to do so well, like in semifinals. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not completely sold on that. But then when that happened, I think it kind of just showed me, it's like in my mind, I wasn't well-rounded enough, like I wasn't quick enough on the ergs, but in that like scenario, it didn't matter. It mattered less how fast you were on the ergs. It mattered a lot more how fast you pulled the sled. And in my mind, that kind of didn't like occur to me that maybe like my strengths would be enough to like, cover the rest. And so it was really cool. I definitely kind of realized like, okay, maybe I can like make a splash this weekend. Cause I again, like that was I was excited for that workout, but not super excited. Like I was only really excited for the snatch. And so when that one went my way, I was like, wow, like I could maybe, do some damage here.
Yeah. Did you, because that workout in particular, and I personally really loved this year that all the semi-finals workouts were the same, but there
Mhm.
were definitely watching some places the sled looked heavier than others in the world.
Yeah,
Did
they compared times
you,
like across semifinals, and I was like, wow, that is 100% like inaccurate. If 10 people finish, faster in the East than like the first person in the West, then I think maybe like there was a discrepancy in like floor, or, like whatever they put the sled on. But yeah, it was all honestly like subjective to like the floor and what it was, like what the surface was, because I remember like the way that we tested it in the gym was drastically different. And so and even on the floor itself, like I vividly remember the sled being easier pulling it one way than the other way. So like I don't know what the floor was made of. I don't know what was under the sled, but I remember it being like one way being like, oh my gosh, like I can barely pull this sled. Like I wonder how other people are doing. And then yeah, I definitely think that the floor had like literally like the whole workout was dependent on that. So
it was a really good event. It was just so interesting, as you say, like to watch different places. I was like,
yeah,
And we, of course, I know we've mentioned it. We have to talk about the fact that there was a max snatch. Like when that comes up, how like what was your reaction? Was it like a sigh of relief? Was it excitement?
I was honestly like so pumped because like kind of like what I was saying, the adrenaline that you get from competing in person and whether that's weightlifting or CrossFit, I have always like it's always really really helped me. And so to get that opportunity to do like my absolute favorite thing in CrossFit on that stage, um was like a dream come true. Like I honestly, like people can go, years without getting like the one thing that they really want to do. And especially in my instances, like one max lift like that, could go, because like the year before was a snatch ladder and it only went up to like, I don't know, I think it was like 185. And if you cleared that bar, you got to choose your next weight. But like even in that scenario, it's like you can't jump 50 pounds like to what you actually want to hit. That's just not smart. So like you can go years and years without seeing something like that. And so when that happened in my year that like I didn't even like plan on being there and going, it was like a complete like God thing. Like I could only like thank him. I was like, oh my gosh, like you put this in here for me. And then it's funny because Bosman, he when he put that in there, one of my friends who's friends with him told him, he was like, my friend Hannah's gonna win that like in the West, so like just look out for her. And then later when I met him in person, I was like, I want to personally thank you for making that event for me, because it changed my life like in an incredible way. And I was like, and you did that for me. You didn't even know me, but you do now, and it's great, so thank you.
It was so fun. Like as you say, I think even these people that we've seen in the sport for a long time don't get that like opportunity to do a max lift and things like that. Were you, when you were out there, like did you, I know you probably had an idea of what you were going to hit, but like did you kind of know you were going to win, or were you like, right, I need to look at what other people are doing? Were you following other people's numbers, or were you just kind of on your own path?
I had very briefly been told in the warm up room, by someone who I didn't even really ask. They walked up and told me that someone had hit 205 in a previous heat. And then I believe the girl who was second to me might have hit her number like 2 heats before me. But by that time, I wasn't with my coach anymore. Like we were lining up, we were getting ready to go out. So when I went out there, I thought that 205 was like the most that someone had hit. But honestly, I wasn't super worried about like who hit what. And maybe I should have paid more attention. But it just wasn't like on the top of my mind. It was more of like what can I do, in the time allowed, because I knew, like, without a doubt, I opened at 205, and I was like, that was a safe opener for me. So I was like, I for sure will hit that. And then depending on how much time I have left, because even though we had practiced it, multiple times, runners can be different. I didn't factor in the time that it took to run from my start mat to the runner, and like how long it took the runner to turn on, like things like that. There's always going to be a little bit of discrepancy in competition. And so I had a little less time on the floor than I had in practice because of those things. And then the other thing was I couldn't wear lifters because you couldn't have them on the floor, and I wasn't going to run in them. So that was a little different too. And so when I got out there, I don't like doing math in competition, or like having to like know what to put on the bar. So my coach like wrote on my forearm, like exactly, not even the numbers, but the colors of the plates and like how I was supposed to put them on, which was such a help, because when you're in like that sort of like high pressure situation, like if I'm going to make a mistake, it's not going to be a lifting mistake. It's going to be a stupid like math loading mistake. And so, I added the colors that he told me to add, declared my weight or whatever. And then 205, felt incredible. And then I went for 215, because that was kind of our plan, was to jump by 10. And so hit 215, and I want to say like less than 45 seconds to go. And I was like, you know what? Like I had just previously hit 225 in practice, like a week before that. I was like, I'm not going to tie my PR. Like that's the lamest thing ever. Why would I do that? I'm going to go for a new PR, and they didn't have change plates less than 2.5. So you had to jump by 5. So I put 230 on the bar and was like, might as well like take a crack at it. And I think I remember I was trying to put the clip on one side, and my hands were just like shaking so much that I like couldn't clamp the clip. And I was like, dang, like she's literally counting down like to 10, like she was saying 10, 9, 8 as I'm like trying to put the clip on. And I like run over to the other side of the bar, and I swear I think I heard her say 1 as soon as the bar like broke off the floor. So like even if the time runs out, as long as the bar's off the floor, it would have counted. But I was just rushed, and I overpulled, and I missed it behind, which is crazy again, because like I don't remember the last time I've missed like a PR anything because I overpulled it. And I think I just had so much adrenaline, and I was so rushed, and I was so excited that I pulled it a little too hard and missed it. But in my head, like going out there, I was like, I know I'll hit 205. I know I'll probably hit 215. And so after that was kind of like up to me. And I think the commentator said, they were like, she does not need to attempt this weight. But for the record, like I didn't know what the girls behind me were hitting, so I wasn't going to turn around and look. And I didn't know, like what was like a safe number. And I wasn't really worried about what was a safe number anywhere. I was out there to PR. I was out there to like have the time of my life, because I think one of the things that I kept saying the whole semifinals weekend was like, I'm not even supposed to be here. So like anything that I do on top of just being here is extra. So like I expect nothing and like appreciate everything. So it was just a really cool opportunity for me.
It was so fun to watch, like that event in general, because who doesn't love, an opportunity to max out. But like coming off of that, and I suppose not to jump forward in time massively, but going into this season, like if you get to that point again, like how do you feel pressure if there's, it's unlikely that it's going to be a max lift again, but when it comes to a lifting event, people know you for that now a lot. Like, do you feel that there's going to be this added amount of pressure on you, or even like pressure on your, like that you're putting on yourself going into like lifting events now?
I definitely think that there's like a voice in the back of my head that's saying like, okay, this is your thing. Like you have to, take advantage of it. But I think more than anything, it's like, I don't want to become a person who's like, I did so well last year, so I have to do this well this year. Honestly, I'm just like again, like expect nothing and appreciate everything. And so if there is like, another heavier event, I'm obviously like, that's going to be my favorite, and I'm going to really swing for the fences there. But if it doesn't go my way, it's like the things that I fall back on is like, I've worked so hard on my weaknesses of, gymnastics, of cardio, of things like that. It's like, I might not be like peak strength. Like I might not be able to hit like my max numbers. But the improvement that I've shown in all of the other areas of CrossFit have been like insane this past off season. And so even if, like I don't end up winning like a heavy lifting event, but I do better in like a gymnastic skill event, like that's a win for me. Like that's really what we've been focusing on. Cause if you followed like my finishes in the semifinals, I had like really, really high highs and then like low lows. And so our whole like mission this off season was keep the highs high, maybe not like the highest, but like even out the lows a little bit. And I think we've 100% done that. And have I lost maybe a little bit of strength because of that? Probably. But nowhere near the amount of like improvement that I've made in the things that I was like really, really bad at in this past off season. So yeah, I will feel like maybe a little bit of pressure going into heavy lifting events, just because like that's what I love. Like that's what fires me up, and like that's what I get most excited to do. But I think honestly, like having a better or like middle of the pack finish in like a gymnastic skill workout would maybe even mean more to me than winning like a heavy lift.
That's the beauty of CrossFit, right? It's like there's always something that is going to be a win. And I know you mentioned like that event changed your life, but that's actually a question I was going to ask you. Like, how has your life changed since semi-finals last year? Because I think there's always a couple of athletes every year, or maybe one each semi-final, who, as you say, like comes in, makes a bit of a splash, maybe doesn't make it to the games, maybe does, but after that weekend, things massively change for you, and you've got maybe more eyes on you, as I say, like pressure, etc. But how has your life changed since that weekend last year?
It's changed in such a good way, honestly. I think so. In the most obvious way, after that snatch event, I think I gained like 11,000 followers on Instagram or like something like that, something insane. Which like at the time I was like, why are all these people following me? They don't even know me. But I'm like, but CrossFit had reposted the video and like tagged me in it, and then I think I like basically within like a day or two.
Oh, sorry.
It was insane.
Oh. No, I've lost
Oh,
you. Oh, there we go. Yeah, hang on.
can you hear
Try
me
now.
now? Does that work?
Yeah, that's fine. I was like, oh, I lost you.
Sorry.
The last thing I was maybe a day or two.
Yeah, so I gained a ton of followers. And then from there, I was in a qualifying spot for the games up until the last day. And so I think I just like the momentum kept rolling. And I think the main thing that probably came out of it all was the exposure and the people that I met because of it. So after semifinals was finished, like a week or two after, one of my friends set me up with who is now my agent through lab management, who's named Cooper, and he has been like a huge help. Him and everyone at the lab have been a huge help to me since then. They honestly, like, it's really cool when someone who meets you like sees the potential that you see in yourself, who's like not your mom or someone, who's like someone like who's a complete stranger, saw me at semifinals, did a little bit of research on like my performance and my background, and then decided that like they were going to take a chance on me because they saw the potential in me for down the road. And ever since then, he and like the other people at the lab have helped me make connections with companies and brands who are essentially like paying me to CrossFit. And it's not like a full-time gig just yet, but it did allow me to pull back my hours of working so that I can train harder and like more during the day, which has been honestly like a drastic like change in my life, and it has helped so much. And so to have, you know, people in my corner who, you know, like are taking a huge chance and believe in me and have gotten me you know, partnerships with companies that have helped me even more to like get to my goal of going to the games has been insane. Because I think you can believe in yourself, and like the people around you, like your mom and your significant other, your siblings can believe in you, but when other people who like don't know like your whole backstory and haven't known you for your whole life start to see that too, is when it becomes like more of a reality. And so that's helped me like an insane amount. That's kind of how I got connected with Brute through a mutual friend. And then they kind of talked, you know, like the CrossFit world is not that big. And so they talked around and like decided that, you know, I would be a really good fit. And then from there, it's like I've gotten sponsorships through companies who have helped me a ton and kind of like are setting me up for success in this next season.
I love that. It's crazy. I should say it's such a small world, but it's becoming bigger. And I think it's so great that we have amazing companies and people that, as you say, are just rooting for other people and helping. And as like, it's crazy that we are like in the 2024 season. And what I would love to know is, you know, last year you say you weren't even going to do quarterfinals, semifinals happened by chance, but like this year, how has your mentality changed? What are your, I know you've just mentioned there going to the games, but like, what are your goals this season?
I think so. I've been doing like a lot of work on the way that I think about things and like my mental approach. And to me, it's less about like definitive, like, you know, like I want to make the games this year. Like obviously like we all want to make the games. Like that's why I train so hard every day. But like for me, um my goal mainly is just to set myself up like for the most success that I can have in the season. So if that's, you know, semifinals and having like a great showing, then that's awesome. If that's making it to the games, like even better. But I think my main focus is less on like the big outcome and more on like what I can do today. So like I have you know, like a whiteboard in my room, like right beside my bed, and it's like, what did you do to like set yourself up for success this season? Like what did you do today? And I have a bunch of like bullet points of things that I want to focus on, like, you know, attacking my program with intent and like strategy, recovering the right way, stretching, like hydrating, hitting my macros, talking to my nutrition coach, and like limiting stress in my life. And so my goals day to day are to like nail those things and like know that without a doubt in my mind, I'm doing every single thing I can do to make myself like the best that I can be in this sport. And so if that, you know, equates to making the games this year, then like heck yeah, like I'm so excited. I'm all for it. But it's also, it's really cool because even if, you know, that's not in the cards for me this year, I will be able to go to bed knowing like I did every possible thing in my power to make myself better every single day to get to that goal. And it's like everyone, like if people say this is not true, it's a lie. It's like there's luck in that. Like there's luck in the events that come out. There's luck in the order of the events. There's luck in, you know, just every single thing. It's like a lot of things have to go right. And you obviously have to be prepared, but there is still like a factor of luck. And I think that used to make me really, really nervous after semifinals. I was thinking in my head, like, you know, the sled workout, that might not have been their intention for the sled to be that heavy. Like maybe next year they'll like auto correct and like, you know, make it a super light, like grindy workout that's not in my favor. And so like I started worrying about things like that. Then a couple of months ago, I was like, wait, like I cannot spend time worrying about the things that are out of my control. Like the event selection is out of my control. The sequence of events like in semifinals are out of my control. Even like the quarterfinals workouts, 100% out of my control. But what I can do is like focus all of my energy on things that are in my control so that when it is my year and, you know, like the luck of the draw happens to be in my favor, that I'm ready for it. So that wasn't quite the answer to your question, but that's kind of
It
how I.
was a great answer though. And I think what something I would just love to magnify on this is how much goes into it. And but I really love that you say that because you can be like, you can do everything and control every single element that you possibly can, and it still might not go your way. And that's just sometimes the way it is. So I love that you talk about that and you explain that. But yeah, obviously we will be rooting for you to get to the games this year, if not next, whatever it may be. As you say, your time will come, and I really love that. I can't let you go without asking you some quick fire questions. I have a very funny feeling I'm going to know the answer to the first one. But what is your favorite lift?
Definitely the snatch, anything heavy. If it was like an ideal world, I would love to snatch off the blocks, so that I could limit the pool a little bit. I must always hit PRs off the blocks before I did off the floor when I was a weightlifter.
Love that. So interesting. You're going to get anyone that's listening now. It's going to be like, right.
Yeah, super specific.
Favorite like overall CrossFit movement?
I would say honestly, I've worked so hard at legless rope climbs because it was something that I was like terrified of in the beginning. And now that I've worked so hard on them, when I see them in workouts, like I'm not quite to the point where I'm getting excited, but I'm like, okay, like I've trained for this, like I know that I can do it. And it was something, you know, like that I absolutely hated. And so now I'm starting to like really like when I see them.
Nice. Favorite benchmark WOD?
That's a good one. Honestly, I loved Linda in semifinals. I don't know if that was like the original Linda, or if they changed it a little bit, but like the version that we did there was honestly so much fun. I loved the dumbbells. I loved like the quick squat cleans. So if that's an option, I would definitely choose that one.
I like agreed. Dream workout, 100%.
Yeah, it was great. I loved it.
My final question for you, if you, and I know we've mentioned team, but if you were to go to the games on a dream team and you could take some people with you, who would you have on your team?
That's a really good question. I think honestly, if I were to be on a team, I followed the Mayhem team this past year with Kiara Milligan and forget who else was on there. But I watched a bunch of their like podcasts and stuff, and like the way that they trained and like their videos, and they had so much fun. And she's so cool. So if I were to ever go team, I would want to be on a team with her. And then honestly, whatever guys that can keep up with us would be suitable.
Love that answer. That's possibly my favorite answer anyone said so far. Very good one. But no, thank you so much, Hannah. It's been so nice to chat. And as I say, we'll be behind you and rooting for you this season and all the seasons to come. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.